As you look at the products around you, maybe your smartphone or, I don't know, even your morning coffee, have you ever stopped to wonder how companies actually arrive at that price tag? Is it just a simple calculation, cost plus a little bit extra?
Yeah.
You might be surprised to learn that this traditional approach, well, while it seems straightforward, it often carries some pretty profound flaws.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, the biggest battle for a product's profitability often isn't one on the factory floor or even in the sales pitch, but maybe years before it ever hits the market.
That's a crucial point. It's far more intricate than simply adding a percentage to material and labor costs.
Right.
Sticking to that older method can easily lead a company to pour resources into something customers simply aren't willing to pay for, or worse, products that aren't truly profitable in the long run.
And that's exactly why this deep dive is so critical. Today, we're going to unpack two incredibly powerful, more modern approaches in management accounting: target costing and lifecycle costing.
Right.
Our mission really is to show you how these methods completely reshape conventional thinking, ensuring a product is not just profitable, but genuinely valuable to you, the customer, from its initial concept right through to its very end.
Yeah, and we'll begin by examining the significant limitations of that conventional costing method. Then we'll transition to target costing, revealing how it directly addresses that fundamental question of what customers are truly willing to pay.
Okay.
And finally, we'll explore lifecycle costing, a method designed to ensure that all costs associated with the product, not merely those incurred during production, are thoroughly considered. It's about getting the complete, true financial picture.
So let's pull back the curtain then on conventional costing. How do companies typically arrive at that initial price tag? What's the traditional calculation look like?
Traditionally, the focus is really on resources currently used or consumed. So for each unit manufactured, you'd account for variable costs, the direct materials, direct labor, and variable overheads. These are often summed up as the marginal cost.
So marginal cost is truly about those direct, scalable expenses for each individual item rather than, say, the big fixed costs of the factory itself.
Precisely. And beyond that, a share of fixed production costs is added. Now, this can be through methods like absorption costing, which tends to spread fixed costs, somewhat broadly across products.
Right.
Or the more sophisticated activity-based costing, or ABC, which drills down to assign costs based on the specific activities a product consumes.
Okay.
The key is, whichever method is used, these fixed overheads are usually based on the budgeted overheads for the current accounting period.
And once they have this total cost, they essentially just add a markup, like a gross profit percentage, to determine the selling price.
That's how it usually works, yeah. That markup is applied to set the selling price and the profit per unit, with the hope, that if budgeted sales figures are met, the organization will achieve its profit goals.
It sounds deceptively simple. Figure out your costs, add a bit extra, and you're good. But, if it were that easy, every product would fly off the shelves, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Where does this seemingly logical approach actually fall apart? What are the big weaknesses here?
Well, there are two main flaws, and they're quite significant. The first is that the product's price is determined by its cost, but there's no inherent guarantee that customers will actually buy it at that price.
Okay.
They might not value certain features as much as the company does, or, competitors might offer better value for money.
Right.
You could end up with a perfectly costed product that just doesn't resonate with the market. And this is the exact problem target costing was designed to solve.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You can build the most amazing feature-packed product, but if the market doesn't value those features enough to pay for them, well, you're in trouble.
Exactly.
But I can already imagine a traditional accounting department pushing back, saying, look, we've always done it this way and we're profitable. What's the biggest blind spot they have, even if they are making money today?
Yeah, that's a good point. The second major flaw lies in the incomplete cost picture. Conventional costing only incorporates current costs, those marginal costs, plus a share of fixed costs for the current period. But what about other absolutely crucial costs without which the product couldn't have been conceived or brought to market? Think about research and development, or even the often overlooked costs of closing down production or disposing of the product at the very end of its life cycle.
Yeah, the end of life stuff.
Right. These are frequently excluded, yet for true long-term profitability, total revenue must exceed all total costs across the entire lifespan of the product. And this is where lifecycle costing becomes indispensable.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this, target costing fundamentally shifts the focus to what the customer will pay, addressing that market reality.
Correct.
And lifecycle costing ensures we see the entire cost picture, not just the current snapshot.
That's it.
Let's really dig into target costing first, because it sounds like it flips the entire traditional script on its head.
It absolutely does. Target costing is fundamentally a marketing-driven approach.
Huh.
I mean, the Chartered Institute of Marketing defines marketing as the management process responsible for identifying, anticipating, and satisfying customer requirements profitably. What stands out here is that customer requirements part. In this mindset, customers truly rule.
So if the customer is king or queen, what kind of core questions are marketing departments and product developers asking themselves when they're thinking about a new product with this target costing mindset?
Well, they're meticulously asking, are our potential customers homogenous, or can we identify distinct market segments?
Okay.
What specific features does each segment truly desire in the product? And crucially, what price are customers actually willing to pay for those features?
Right, the willingness to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how do our competitors' products influence this pricing? What are customers comparing us to? And of course, what are the advertising and distribution costs that will be necessary to reach those customers?
That point about advertising and distribution costs is significant. It's not just about the manufacturing, is it?
Not at all.
I recall some really strong language in our sources describing the traditional approach. It said something like, no point in management, engineers and accountants sitting in darkened rooms dreaming up products, hoping those products sell.
Yeah, I remember that.
They went on to call this corporate arrogance.
Yeah.
At worst, it is corporate suicide.
That's a pretty stark warning against an inward-looking approach.
It's a powerful statement, isn't it? But it perfectly encapsulates the core philosophy of target costing. Instead of starting with your cost and adding a markup,
The old way.
the old way, yeah, you reverse the equation. You start with the market-determined selling price, the price customers are willing to pay.
Cool.
From that, you subtract the desired profit element. What remains is your maximum allowable cost. The company then has to innovate and find ways to ensure they don't exceed that specific cost. It's a constraint. So, okay, let's take an example. If a company typically expects, say, a 50% markup on cost, and they know a new product will sell successfully at $12, they work backward. What's the absolute maximum they can spend to still hit that profit goal?
Precisely. If the market dictates a $12 selling price and they aim for a 50% markup on cost, then the profit component is $4.
Right.
Because $8 cost plus $4 profit, which is 50% of $8, equals $12.
Got it.
So the maximum allowable cost of production should be $8. This forces the entire organization to figure out how to make that product for $8 or less to meet their profit goal at that competitive market price. It's a very powerful discipline.
Yeah, it avoids building things no one will buy at your price.
Exactly.
So what are the big actionable results that come out of this price minus philosophy? It sounds like it demands a complete rethinking of product development.
It really does. There are two primary results. First, it necessitates the establishment of truly multifunctional teams. These are vital for making smart design and manufacturing decisions. You bring together marketing, cost accountants, production managers, quality control professionals, all collaborating from the very beginning. They work synergistically to define the price and feature combinations that will genuinely appeal to buyers.
That sounds like a much more holistic and collaborative process than just, the accountants telling everyone what it costs after the fact.
It certainly is. And the second major result is a huge emphasis on the planning and design stage. This phase becomes incredibly crucial.
Why so crucial?
Because if a product is initially designed to be needlessly expensive, perhaps with too many features customers don't value, or using overly complex components, it really doesn't matter how efficient your production process is later on.
Right.
You'll likely always struggle to achieve satisfactory profits. The early design choices effectively lock in a massive portion of the product's ultimate cost.
That's a fascinating insight. It's easy to think cost control happens, on the factory floor. But if the design is so pivotal, what kind of seemingly small choices in that early phase can lead to enormous cost implications down the line?
That's a great question. These decisions include the specific product features and actively avoiding over-design, which means adding features customers aren't willing to pay for.
Okay.
It also involves the number of components needed, whether those components are standard and readily available versus highly specialized. The complexity of machining and construction is a design choice. Even deciding where the product can be made in-house or by a subcontractor that affects cost.
Sure.
And of course, the chosen quality of the product and the batch size in which it can be made. All of these are decisions made at the design stage that have a direct and lasting impact on costs.
And this is where value engineering comes in, isn't it? It sounds like a fancy term, but it's really about a surgical approach to cost.
Yeah, basically.
Ensuring every penny spent translates directly into customer perceived value, whether that's core functionality or maybe that elusive wow factor.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. Value engineering or value analysis is a key tool within target costing. Its core aim is to reduce costs by identifying parts of a product or service that do not add true value or where value can be achieved more efficiently.
Okay.
And value here is typically defined in two ways. Use value, which is the product's ability to perform its core function.
Makes sense.
And esteem value, which is the status or prestige that ownership confers.
So with something like a luxury perfume, the packaging clearly isn't just about protection, is it? That's where esteem value really shines. How does a company navigate that without adding unnecessary costs?
You've hit on a perfect example. Economizing too much on perfume packaging would directly damage the esteem value, right? Even if the perfume itself, the use value remains unchanged.
Right, it wouldn't feel luxurious.
Exactly. Conversely, in a car, you might find many internal components that could be replaced by cheaper or simpler ones without damaging either use or esteem values. But then you have critical components like parts of the suspension system, which are vital to the car's use value, or the quality of the paint and upholstery, which contributes significantly to esteem value.
Sure.
Value engineering aims to maximize both use and esteem values while strategically driving down costs. It's a delicate balance.
Okay, so target costing is all about getting the design right, ensuring the product appeals to the market and hits a profitable price from the start.
In a nutshell, yes.
But you mentioned another modern approach, lifecycle costing. How does that fit into this picture? And how does it interact with what we've just discussed?
That's the perfect connection. While target costing places a huge emphasis on design and planning, those upfront activities themselves cause costs.
Right.
Lifecycle costing steps in to ensure that the total revenue generated by a product ultimately exceeds all costs incurred throughout its entire life, whether those costs happen before, during, or even after production.
Okay.
It's about viewing the full financial narrative of a product, from cradle to grave.
So we're not just talking about manufacturing and R&D, but even what happens when the product is no longer viable, like disposal or recycling costs.
Exactly. We're talking about the initial design and development costs, the manufacturing costs, and then what are often called end-of-life costs, which could include decommissioning, safe disposal, or recycling.
Got it.
The beauty is that target costs can be driven down by addressing any cost related to any part of a product's life. It forces a complete financial perspective.
What are the big lessons or core principles we should take away from understanding lifecycle costing?
There are 4 principal lessons, really. First, truly all costs should be included when determining a unit's cost and assessing its profitability. No skipping steps.
Okay, all costs.
Second, a holistic attention to all these costs helps significantly reduce the cost per unit and thereby helps an organization achieve its target cost.
So it's not just about trying to squeeze savings out of the manufacturing process, but looking at the entire interconnected chain.
Precisely. That leads right into the third lesson. Many costs are surprisingly linked. For instance, investing more attention and resources in design can actually reduce manufacturing costs and even future warranty claims down the line.
Ah, interesting.
More thorough training can reduce machine maintenance costs.
Yeah.
And more efficient waste disposal practices during manufacturing can significantly reduce end-of-life costs.
Right.
Everything is interconnected, and an investment in one phase can lead to savings in another.
That's a powerful idea. What's the fourth lesson?
The fourth is perhaps the most profound, and it's something many companies traditionally miss. Costs are committed and incurred at very different points in time.
Committed versus incurred. Explain that.
Okay, so a committed cost is a future cost that you're obligated to pay because of a decision you've already made. Costs are only incurred when a resource is actually used or, the money leaves your bank account.
Ah, so you're implying that a huge chunk of a product's costs are locked in long before production even begins.
That's exactly it.
How much of a product's ultimate cost is actually committed during those very early stages, say, by the end of the design phase?
It's a staggering figure, really. Studies consistently show that approximately 80% of a product's total lifetime costs are committed by the end of the design phase.
Wow, 80%.
Think about that. The design largely dictates the type of material, the amount of labor, and the kind of machinery that will be used. So while a company can try to haggle with suppliers over component prices, if the initial design specifies, say, 10 units of a certain expensive component, negotiating might only save a small percentage.
Right, you're fighting over pennies.
Exactly. A much larger cost reduction could have been achieved if the design had simply specified only 8 units of that component in the first place, or maybe a cheaper alternative.
Okay.
The design phase is where the greatest opportunities for cost reduction truly lie, because it effectively locks in most future costs.
That fundamentally changes where companies need to focus their cost-cutting efforts, doesn't it? Conventional costing only records costs as they're incurred, right?
Right.
But it sounds like effective performance management relies on cost control at the point where decisions are committed, not just cost measurement when the money is spent later.
That's the essence of it. You need to control costs when the decisions are made, when the die is cast, so to speak, not just when the bill arrives.
Okay, let's bring this all together with a numerical example. This should really make it concrete. Imagine a company planning a new product. Market research suggests they can sell 10,000 units at $21 per unit.
Okay.
And they're aiming for a 40% markup on the product cost.
Okay. Standard scenario.
Yeah.
And let's say the initial estimated lifetime costs for this product are $50,000 for design and development, $10 per unit for manufacturing, and $20,000 for end-of-life costs.
Right. First question. Based on the market price and desired profit, what is the target cost per unit for this product?
Okay, so given a selling price of $21 and a desired 40% markup on product cost, the selling price itself represents 140% of the cost, 100% cost plus 40% markup. So you take that $21 selling price and divide it by 1.40.
Okay, 21 divided by 1.4.
That calculation gives you a target cost of $15 per unit. This is the maximum they can spend per unit and still hit their profit margin.
$15. So they absolutely have to produce it for $15 or less.
Correct.
Second question. What's the original life cycle cost per unit based on these estimates? And critically, is the product even worth making on that basis?
All right, let's calculate the total lifetime costs. We have $50,000 for design and development, plus 10,000 units multiplied by $10 per unit for manufacturing, which is $100,000.
Okay, $100K there.
And then $20,000 for those end-of-life costs.
Got it.
So $50,000 plus $100,000 plus $20,000. That totals $170,000.
Right.
Now divide that total by the 10,000 units.
Okay, $170K divided by 10K units.
And the original life cycle cost per unit comes out to $17. $17. So $17 per unit is above the $15 target cost we just calculated.
It is.
Which means, as it stands, no, it's not worth making, right? At least not if they want to hit their 40% profit target.
Correct. The current design and cost structure simply won't allow them to meet their profit goal. But here's where these methods offer genuine strategic insight.
Okay.
What if the company decided to spend an additional $15,000 on design and development with the specific goal of significantly reducing those manufacturing costs per unit?
Investing more upfront to save later.
Exactly. In that scenario, what's the maximum manufacturing cost per unit they could tolerate now to still earn their required markup?
Okay, so the total target cost per unit is still $15. That hasn't changed.
Still $15 set by the market and profit goal.
But now our non-manufacturing lifetime costs have increased because of that additional design investment.
That's right. Our design and development costs are now $50,000 plus that additional $15,000, bringing it to $65,000.
$5K. Add the $20,000 for end-of-life costs, and the total non-manufacturing lifetime costs are $85,000.
Okay, $85K total for non-manufacturing.
Now divide that by the 10,000 units, and these fixed lifetime costs now absorb $8.50 of our $15 target cost per unit.
$8.50.
Wow. Which means the manufacturing cost allowance has shrunk significantly.
Exactly. You subtract that $8.50 from the $15 target cost. 15 minus $8.50.
$6.50.
Right. This means the maximum manufacturing cost per unit would have to fall dramatically, all the way down to $6.50.
Whoa.
So to justify that extra design spend, manufacturing costs would have to drop from the original $10 per unit down to $6.50 per unit. That's the challenge the design team would now face.
A substantial drop indeed. This single example just vividly illustrates the actionable power these costing methods offer, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
They completely shift the conversation about product viability, moving it beyond simple current costs to a dynamic, forward-looking strategic discussion driven by market realities and long-term profitability. It clearly shows where the strategic focus needs to be for true, sustainable profitability. It's upstream.
And there we have it. We've journeyed from the limitations of conventional thinking to understand how target costing completely shifts the focus from an inward cost-plus mentality to a market-driven price-minus approach, always keeping customer value and market reality at the forefront. And then, how lifecycle costing ensures that every single cost, from that initial concept meeting to the very end-of-life disposal, is factored into a product's true long-term profitability.
The key takeaway, I think, as our numerical example powerfully demonstrated, is that design is truly where the biggest cost control opportunities lie.
Definitely.
That's because the design phase is where most costs are committed, even if they aren't incurred until much later in the product's life cycle.
Understanding these sophisticated costing strategies isn't just for, business executives and accountants. It helps you, the listener, grasp why products are priced the way they are, why some features might appear or disappear, and the profound long-term thinking that goes into bringing products to market. It fundamentally changes how you view value, I think.
And it empowers you to think more strategically about resource allocation, even in your own context.
It certainly does. So thinking about this idea of committed costs versus incurred costs, what long-term decisions are you making today, maybe in your career, your personal projects, or even your daily habits that might be committing you to future costs, efforts, or outcomes you might not be fully aware of yet?
That's a great question.
What opportunities might you have to influence those future costs by making smarter design choices right now, rather than simply reacting to costs as they're incurred down the line?